It's funny because I guess Texas Ebony kind of started the whole project, this whole mission to Texas to collect the wood. The show is called Border States, and that grew out of thinking about this current political climate, but also this notion of borders and means of separating people that are things that have existed forever and are manifested in different ways. Obviously I was interested in the US-Mexico border, but also I was interested in just the common motifs of and manifestation of borders intended to keep people out, such as fences and doors, and these are sort of more domestic realms that aren't always necessarily perceived as sort of confrontational, but also demarcate like this possessions and things that someone owns. This house is mine, and something I've worked for, but also something I want to keep people out of. It already reached sort of the craziness point when I was saying I was going there to collect. I came all the way from New York to collect these trees that are ordinarily thrown away, and that I was going through so much trouble to maintain the branches on them once they were cut down. It was only when I realized how difficult and sort of not overly abundant, or at least access to the wood was, that I started to include the other trees, the mesquite and the cedar. It's interesting about the cedars is that historically they're one of the oldest materials, at least in Texas and the United States, used for fence posts because of their chemical makeup. They don't rot, and they also tend to be pest resistant. And so I'm interested as a wood choice that this was a traditional building material. But also more importantly, I was interested in sort of this idea, this ability of these trees, although they're natives and indigenous to Texas and the United States, they're considered sort of like trash trees or invasive trees because mesquite, as well as the two types of cedars, both tend to excel when other vegetation struggles. And so from a cultural, political level, I'm interested in a tree having that type of identity of something that is, has a rightful place and belonging, but also being despised and not wanted. And in terms of calling it a covered wagon, I'm really interested in thinking from the pioneers and the sort of westward expansion, thinking of 200, 300 years ago, but also thinking of, and whether it's gentrification or immigration, people have constantly throughout history sort of expanded into new environments. And so also wrapped into this piece, a lot of my work is interested in camouflage as this sort of analogy for blending in and assimilation into a larger social environment. I like the sense of, not only the sense of growth in the piece, but also this notion of wanting to be a part of this new world, of this new society. And the Texas Ebony, my attraction to it came from it sort of being a play on my identity. And this, as a Black person from Texas, and this sort of indigenous tree to Texas that grows in this very southwestern tip of Texas into Mexico, that has a heartwood, which is the inner part of the tree that is a dark brown to black color, and the sapwood, which is the outer part of the tree that's growing underneath the bark, is a sort of more whitish, yellowish color. One unexpected sort of thing about this piece is, to some degree, it looks like a constellation from a distance, or as you approach some of them, which, I don't know, this idea of a lullaby for a child I kind of think is kind of twisted. Seeing it from a distance and not necessarily knowing what's inside, and then, upon approaching it, it's like, it's almost as if the crib is consuming, the child that would be in it, as if it's these teeth or these fangs. Black crib, but with this sort of this implied imprisonment by these white thorns. There definitely is like a language of thorns that, like, the kind of, I was working with assistants on realizing the show. And a lot of the locations, there were thorny vines growing all around these trees, especially where the cedar trees came from. A vine is this plant that in this competitive forestscape is competing for light and grows up on the support of other trees, but also to protect itself, it has these thorns as this other sort of expression of resistance or defense. I really wanted to try to animate them so that they looked like they were sort of in some form of conversation or movement with each other. For me, the thorns are just another expression of that difficulty to inhabit a space, which I feel is today and always are a manifestation of these sort of barriers that we create.